Hi, everyone. Welcome to week 29. We are going to be looking at assignment number two. It's going to be a flip grid, and it's going to be a short flip grid, but it's going to be revolving around a world leader. His name is Mao Zedong. And so we're going to be looking at a couple of items that are attached to that assignment. So just be aware, okay, this week, week 29, you actually have your study guide due, okay, which we assigned last week. So you had plenty of time to finish this. You have the Macedon flip grid, and of course you have a quiz. And all of this is due before we go on break. So spring break is going to be in the next week. And so all of this will be due on Friday, including our assignment, the new assignment for this week. Okay? All right, so just be aware of that and make sure you remember. So let's take a look at our assignment number two here in our scheduled events. And so this is going to be a little bit of a work. There's actually a lot of sources to kind of go through, but you want to do that before you actually make a video recording of what you think about this leader. Okay, so Mao Zedong is actually who we're evaluating, and it's an effective leader. Okay, so when I say effective, is that did he accomplish his task? Was he successful in, I guess, bringing the government together, or in some ways being able to run some of these items effectively? Okay, and so, or was he not very effective, or was he just not very good at organizing the government or getting certain things working in a certain way? So think about what an effective leader means, okay? And so this should be an ineffective leader. Shouldn't be a terrible leader, but this is definitely not actually, I guess. So think of something. Think of actually how you want to evaluate, and based on the evidence that you have. Only the evidence you have. That's very important. Make sure you only use the evidence you have. All right, so let's go and take a look at some of these directions. And this is actually the chart and the handout you really want to look at. So let's go and click on that, okay? And so the Mao Zedong Flipgrid assignment is going to require you to use three supporting events or references from the included reading and video. So there's one video that lets you argue what kind of leader Mao Zedong was. Was he effective or was he ineffective? Meaning, effective meaning that he was able to accomplish tasks and be successful, bringing the people together and running an efficient government. Or was he not so effective, meaning that things failed, programs were just not helpful or correct, and he really kind of made everybody have a bad day. So think about like what that means, and so think about like was he successful in certain areas, or was he not successful in certain areas? Okay, but only use the information given in these three articles that are linked here, and also linked here in your Google Classroom. So if you're not sure where to find that, there's actually two different places for that, and you should be able to find either here in the introduction or here in the Google Classroom. Okay. All right, so you're going to read through these, and as you read through these documents, so I'm going to pull up one of these documents. So let me do the first one. Okay. So the first one is just a PDF, and it gives you a little bit of information about Mao Zedong, and it's broken up into all these headings. So there's the synopsis, the humble beginnings, long march, and fallout, and so forth and so on. Okay. All right. So for this, I want you to just give like a brief idea of each of these sections. Not each of these sections, actually only three of these sections. So if you found something that you really like in the Great Leader Humble Beginnings, you're going to give me generally the idea of what you found there, okay? So for example, if I look at that, it says about Mao, country's future leader, okay, in a Chinese farming community, and life was difficult, and his family was better off than most, but he left home to kind of go to school in 1917. So he was fairly educated. Like there are many people in China that wasn't at that time. They weren't even they didn't even know how to read. So it was kind of interesting to see that he actually did get an education, even though he was coming from a very rural kind of a farming family. Okay, so maybe what we could put there, let's see, what we could put there would be a farm came from a farming family able to receive an education. Okay, and that says kind of volumes, right? It was not really most of the mass weren't educated, and for him, he was fairly lucky, even though he came from a very like he was very much like every other Chinese person there, like about 80% to 90% for farmers, anyways, during that time. So just to imagine, like how that was. Okay, life was hard, but he was able to have some luck, and understand certain things. So that was actually a kind of important intention of that. Okay, so how does that actually weigh into this idea of like what kind of leader he is? And so at the bottom here, we're gonna have to talk about what if he was an effective leader. And so you could say Mao was an effective leader uh, because he was able to identify with the commoners, as he was one, common people, and received an education to help guide them, right? So already you could see that there are definitely things that we could use effectively just by looking at this one idea. Okay, just analyze it. So what kind of leader was he? How do you know? And then you have to think about that. So you're gonna have to do that for uh, this one, okay? The second one, which is actually the one about communist, the Cultural Revolution, Mao's Cultural Revolution. And then this one is an interesting one. This one is actually a video by John Green. And you don't actually need all of it because he talks about the whole Chinese Revolution. But most of it, the majority of this is actually centered around Mao Zedong. So think about how Mao Zedong was and how effective his plans were. And those are actually um, given to you in minutes. So this is like 0 to 50 seconds. So this first part of the introduction kind of tells you a little bit about the two revolutions and what happened. Okay, and so there's more information, and these are all kind of broken up by times. Okay, so look at the times. Okay, and the thought bubble was actually a little bit sad, but John Green will kind of tell you a little bit more about it. But the Cultural Revolution, yeah, that came next. Yeah, it was, well, it kind of sucked too. So when we talk about all of these things, think about like what does that say about Mao's effectiveness as a leader? Okay. All right. So after you do this, you will need to go to this link for the Flipgrid, and then you will need to go to the Flipgrid and then record your example. Okay. So click on this now. Go take a look at the instruction there, and also look at the additional video I put there to kind of help you with presenting. Okay. So make sure you complete this first part. Okay. Evaluate correctly at the second part, and then the third part would be to present and then record. Okay, so it doesn't seem like a whole lot if you kind of break it down and if you only take some of the things that you feel are important or helpful. So each of these is only going to be 3 sections, so you're not really writing very much. Okay, this is where you need to actually really give a good idea of why he was an effective or ineffective leader, and then again 3 sections, and then also 3 sections maybe from probably the longer sections you already have like a good amount of information. So just FYI, okay? So make sure you have something jotted down here and some notes so you're prepared when you record, okay? All right, so that should be it, but check out the Flipgrid for my example of how you should be presenting your 3 supporting evidence and then referring back to them. Okay, just and again, you don't need anything written. You don't need to show me anything, but you do need to literally talk about it was from this video or this article. And so make sure you watch that video as well. All right, thank you guys for your time, and I hope you guys have a pleasant spring break.